Hey everyone, it's Grant Winsauer, and
Jack Rhodey.
back here on the Bear Clawcast. We are not together today because something popped up that Jack had to do it at home, but that's okay. We're still bringing you guys some content, and we actually have a fairly good amount of stuff to talk about today for it being the beginning of the off season per se. But that's why I have begun to realize that the NFL season doesn't really have an off season. Tomorrow, or before we get into everything that we're going to talk about, and that includes roster cuts, uh, NFL Combine stuff, salary cap, and then we're going to end off on a mock draft. But before we get into that, how was your weekend away, Jack? It looked like you had some fun. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for asking. I was down in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and for those who don't know, it's like Pigeon Forge area. It's home
Mhm.
of Dolly Parton's Dolly World. So the best way I can really describe it is honestly like a Disney World in Tennessee. It was pretty cool, but it was a nice little trip to break up the monotony of the semester. Just quick little weekend trip, but helps break up the homework and the studying and the just routine of what we've got going on so far this semester.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad you had fun. So let's get into this. So the off season has officially started, and teams are um, beginning to cut down their roster before free agency. And with this new staff in place for the Bears, I wouldn't be surprised if we release some names that we wouldn't think of or thought that would be around for some time. Um, the Bears have already made two cuts that should not surprise anyone, and those two cuts were Gerald Everett and Demarcus Walker. Those two cuts alone add around $11 million to our cap space, which is around 80 million right now. That's before you factor in the free agent or the rookie class and some buffering. So right now, I would say in actuality, we have about 65 million in cap space right now because I think the rookie class is set to about 12 million, and then a couple extra million for buffering. But neither of these cuts should surprise anyone because they didn't really contribute very much. Everett signed a 2-year, $14 million deal and followed Shane Waldron to Chicago, and he caught a total of 8 passes for 36 yards in 17 games. And once Waldron was fired, I felt like there was a good chance that he wouldn't be around this upcoming season. Um, Now, Demarcus Walker contributed more than Everett, but still only had 3.5 sacks last year and the year before that, and probably just doesn't fit the kind of edge rusher that Dennis Allen is looking for. Ne- Um, so, Jack, you and me have talked about these two guys constantly when we're together throughout the week, and uh, what are your thoughts on these cuts so far?
Yeah, I think they were definitely both cuts that needed to be made. You can find somebody who can replace Walker's level of production, hopefully in free agency. I think the fact that they cut him this early leads me to believe they might be looking a little bit more towards free agency for a replacement rather than the draft, just because I don't think there's going to be anyone available at 10 that we would really reach on pass rusher wise because Abdul Carter is going to be gone. And then James Pierce Jr. and Mike Green both have a lot of character concerns and might not even go in the first round because of those. But the Gerald Everett side or cutting was complete no brainer. Like you mentioned, even like I think probably 75% of those catches of his 8 catches came before Shane Waldron was fired as well, which was in the first 5 to 7 weeks of the season. So
Mhm.
Everett was very much a non-contributor towards the end of the year. Cole Kmet is the guy we paid a lot of money. We still had Mercedes Lewis in there for blocking a lot, even though I feel like every time he went in the game, he had a holding penalty. So there really was just no place for Everett on this roster. So good
Yeah,
decision.
and actually, since you mentioned Mercedes Lewis, I'm just gonna say it. I don't see him back next year either.
Yeah,
I mean, I think he signed like a vet minimum anyway. He's almost 40, so
yeah.
really,
I
there's
mean, he
not
wasn't
really
he
any.
wasn't getting paid much, if anything, but
Yeah, there's not really. If anything, he was a veteran presence, a leader in the tight end room, and a blocker. If he caught a pass, it was like 2 yards for
yeah,
if that. But I love the veteran presence that he gave, but there's no point for him at this point. But there are a couple names that probably actually a few people have been thinking about cutting. Um, Two are, I think, realistic, and one is kind of just a name that I put on there might because of the fact that he might not fit the defensive scheme that Dennis Allen is looking to run. But I would be totally fine if we kept him for a year, especially because of the fact that his uh, partner on the other side has a lot of injury concerns. But let me get to the first two that I think are more of legitimate cut candidates rather than the last guy. So the two that I think are legitimate candidates are Ryan Bates and Jonathan Owens. Um, Now, Bates only played in 3 games this year while starting 2 of them. However, when we decided to move on from him, it would save us an extra $4 million, and I'd rather have the extra money. Owens played in all 17 games, but only had 49 total tackles with 1 interception, one forced fumble, and 2 passes defended. If we cut him, we'd save another 1.7 million. Um, so the guy that I think we could look at, but I hope we actually don't because of the injuries to Jaquan Brisker, is Kevin Byard. Um, I want to see him stay because he's a very reliable presence or reliable player, and he gives the defense a veteran leader on the defensive side of the ball. I only put him on this list because when a whole new coaching staff comes in, they want to bring their own players that fit their systems. And like I said before, I'm not sure if Byard fits Allen's system, and if we cut him, we'd save another $7.5 million. So, for reference, if we cut the 3 players that I just mentioned, that would be another $13.2 million to our cap, which our cap is currently at 79.7. So we'd be at around $93 million before the extra cap gets added on. So, Jack, what are your thoughts on the 3 guys that I just mentioned?
yeah. I think for Bates and for Owens, those are I won't be upset if either of them get cut. I think Bates I could possibly see staying around another year just because of the issues we've had on the offensive line with health, and it's not bad to have an extra offensive lineman there. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, part of the reason we had issues last year is because Bates only played 3 games, so I could see them moving on from him because $4 million is not a small number for cap hit. You can definitely allocate that somewhere else.
Sure.
Owens, I can definitely see getting cut. That wouldn't surprise me. And then I think you hit the nail on the head with Kevin Byard. It's really going to come down to A, does he fit Jonathan Allen's scheme, or not Jonathan Allen, Dennis Allen's
Dennis
scheme,
Allen.
sorry. And B, can they find somebody to replace him if they do cut him that will provide at least somewhere close to equal value for, I mean, I would say the same cost, but cost doesn't really matter because they have a lot of cap room. So they'd be able to either sign somebody for less or more, and it wouldn't really matter too much. But I wouldn't cut Kevin Byard unless you had someone in place that you were actively targeting to replace him. That would be better production.
And my concern with cutting Byard per se is the fact that Jaquan Brisker has a lot of concussion problems, and well, I think he will come back healthy next season, hopefully. You know, after you get a certain amount of concussions, it's just you're never the same player. So I would rather have one reliable safety that hasn't been missing games a lot
Hmm.
on one side and possibly draft, maybe a guy to have a contingency plan for Brisker in like the fourth round, maybe if you can trade back a little bit on one of your uh, second round picks, maybe if you trade back like a 3 or 4 spot, you could probably get maybe a third or a fourth round draft pick, and maybe you could allocate that to a safety just for a contingency plan with Brisker, because I'd rather have a third or fourth round draft pick as a backup to Brisker rather than a sixth or seventh round draft pick as a backup to him.
Hmm.
Because at least if you're in the third or fourth round for most positions, you are at least like a contributing type of player. If
Yeah, the
you're
hopes are that you'll contribute.
but that's just me. Maybe some cuts are made that we didn't mention, and that is completely possible with this new coaching staff. I don't know what will happen. I just am trying to predict off of what I've seen on Twitter or what other people are saying.
Hmm.
That's the best that I can do when I don't have inside sources. I just look on Twitter and see what people are saying.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, if we can get somewhere to around $90 million before the extra cap sets in, which we'll talk about in here next. I mean, we we have to get as much money as we can so we can help Caleb Williams in this offense and get
Hmm.
the people that Ben Johnson wants. So
Yeah.
let's get let's get into the salary cap stuff. We kind of went over it when we were talking about roster cuts just a minute ago, but the salary cap has gone up again. It is reported going to be somewhere between 70 or 277.5 to $281.5 million. Um, and that is an extra like 22 to $25 million for all 32 teams. And for teams that just got new coaches and GMs, they will take the any extra money they can get. And if anyone is wondering if the salary cap number will ever stay the same, with how much revenue the NFL receives each and every year, it will just continue to go up. The only thing is we don't know how much it will go up every year. Um, but the past like couple of years, it's just gone up like crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
there was a period in time where it was pretty stagnant, but these last two off seasons have definitely seen a large cap increase.
and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it. I think that a part of it is attributed to Taylor Swift, because she's probably helping the younger generation um, get into football a little bit, because they'll watch her in the stands anywhere. I mean, I don't want to say that it's fully her contrib- contribution, or because she's dating Travis Kelsey, but she's helping a little bit because I think she's gotten the NFL like an extra $1 billion because of that, because of her relationship with Kelsey. I'm not sure if that's the actual number, but I think it's something close to that. But we're getting off topic here. Let's get back to talking football. So the Bears could have close to or possibly over $100 million in cap space this offseason, depending on what other cuts we make and possible restructures we could make. Um, so for me, and I'm pretty sure all of the Bears fans, there are two position groups that we can all agree that the Bears need to focus on, and that is O line and D line. So I came up with three guys on each side that I think the Bears should target in free agency for O line and D line. And Bears might need to open the checkbook for some of these guys. Um, and um, and with them doing that for Ben Johnson, I think they'll do it for free agents. Finally, the three guys that I hope they target for the offensive line are Trey Smith. Could you come back? Um, Trey Smith, Drew Dahlman, and Mekhi Becton. Um, Bears fans shouldn't care about the price tag for Smith. He would be the belle of the ball of our free agency class, and it also helps that Poles was with him when Smith was drafted, and he has a girlfriend that lives in Chicago. I just found that out a couple days on Twitter, so that might contribute to him coming to Chicago. The Bears have constantly struggled at the center position. It is time to fix that and get an established starter. And Drew Dahlman is the best option for that if he makes it to free agency. And for me, I put Becton on this list as more of a backup plan to Trey Smith. If we don't get Smith, he was originally, I think that he would be a good backup for guard. He was originally drafted as a tackle by the Jets a few years ago, but didn't shine until he transitioned to guard on the Eagles. Now, the thing is, it'll be interesting to see if Becton actually makes it to free agency, because with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, they might want to keep the core together, and the price tag to Becton, if he does make it to free agency, might go up because he just won a Super Bowl. And also, if he does make it to free agency, he might want to follow Kellen Moore to New Orleans, but they're in salary cap hell right now. So
Yeah, they have been
that,
for a number of years.
yeah, they've been in salary cap hell for another number of years. But I mean, again, it's all about if these players make free agency. But those would be the best three guys to target for, I'm pretty sure, all Bears fans. And there's backup plans to Dahlman as well. You got Ryan Kelly, and I'm sure that there are some guys that aren't listed as free agents right now that will be cut by certain teams because they have to get under the salary cap. But what are your thoughts on the three guys on the offensive line that we hope the Bears would target, Jack?
Yeah, I feel like these are three names we've definitely heard mentioned a lot so far this offseason. Trey Smith is definitely the cream of the crop at the guard position in free agency. He's pretty much the one offensive lineman on the Chiefs who I thought played well against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Uh, I did not know about that connection with his girlfriend. I actually do think that matters a little bit because if you ever pay attention to like the college transfer portal for different sports, if a guy's got a girlfriend at a different school, it's about a 95% chance that if he enters the transfer portal, he's going to
That's
that
where he's
school.
going.
So that's maybe a little bit more important than some people realize, but we'll have to see about that. And then obviously, Drew Dahlman has been the center of choice for Bears Twitter this offseason. We just need a center, not a rookie. We talked about that a lot last offseason. Even though Caleb's not a rookie anymore, I would rather have somebody a little bit more experienced there just to continue to help this offensive line unit gel. And then Mekhi Becton, obviously a huge dude, like you mentioned, drafted as a tackle out of Louisville. Uh, I would be a little bit more wary about him. Obviously, he had a great year, but he was supported by the best offensive line in football on both
Sure,
sides. Like he's
sure,
got
sure.
Lane Johnson to his right, and then Cam Jurgens to his left. So, I mean, they had a very, very solid offensive line. So, not to take anything away from his success, but I think
Absolutely not. Absolutely
his
not. No.
his payday might be a little bit bigger than it would have been if he had a similar type season with a different team that didn't have the success the Eagles did.
So let me ask you a question. So let's say that the person that they have circled for one of their guards positions is Trey Smith. And hopefully he is that guy that's circled. What? Okay, what is like the number that you are comfortable paying him, and what is the number that you would stop at?
I mean, considering I'd have to take a look at what other guards, like what the top guards in the league are being paid. But with the
I
salary
can
cap
look that
going
up
up
for you,
and the
actually.
amount of salary cap we have, like I'd be comfortable getting into that mid 20s per year range. Like I know that's a lot for a guard, I'm assuming, but I just think with the money we have, and I can look it up as well right now. I know you said you were going to.
Okay, Landon Dickerson is the highest paid guard right now at $21 million.
Yeah, like I would be okay going up to like 22 to 24 million dollars with the amount of cap space that's about to go up, the amount of cap space we have. And you
Yeah,
know what? Sometimes you got to overpay to go get your guys. Like,
absolutely,
sure,
absolutely.
maybe he's only worth 20 million, maybe he's not better than Landon Dickerson, but at the same time, if that extra couple million gets him to come to Chicago and you have him for the next number of years protecting Caleb Williams, it's 100% worth it.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes to get talent like that to come to a underperforming type of team, at least in the past, sometimes you have to say, "Here, I'll throw you an extra $4 million to come here at $24 million instead of 21,
Hmm.
or 20." And I mean, I wouldn't go as far as like 25, but
Yeah.
I would be totally fine if it's 22 to 24 for 4 or 5 years. In fact, do you think it would be 4 or 5 years if you had to
Uh,
guess?
I think it would probably be four if I had to guess, but never know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's a very comfortable number. And if I had to guess for um for Drew Dahlman, I would say that he would get somewhere around $12 million per
Yeah, I
year.
was I was gonna say 12 to 15, just because I feel like everything we think got to bump it up by a couple $1 million just because of
No, I think like 12 is the starting number. So
yeah.
I'd probably be very I if we got him for 4 years, I'd be comfortable throwing him like 13 and a half, right in
For
the middle
sure.
there.
Yeah.
And Mekhi Becton, that one's hard for me to predict, but he would not get as much as Trey Smith. I would say that he'd be somewhere around, just because of the success of his season in terms of getting the Super Bowl, that bumps up your value a little bit. So I'll say 13 to 15
Hmm.
is where I would put him around. I would
Yeah.
say
And then
that
all
would
I
be
was I
my
was gonna also say, like, if we were able to get two of those three and then draft Will Campbell at 10, you're looking at an offensive line
absolutely,
of Braxton
absolutely.
Jones at left tackle, Will Campbell at left guard, Dahlman at center, Trey Smith at right guard, and Darnell Wright at right tackle, and that's immediately a at least average to above average offensive line in my
That
opinion.
on paper, that should be a top 10 offensive line
Yeah,
on paper. But, on paper and on the field are two different things,
for
sadly.
sure.
I mean, we thought that this was going to be a top 10 receiving room last year when we got Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore. And respectfully, I still think that is. But in terms of the stats, it was not.
Yeah.
But so and now we'll get on to the defensive side of the ball. We need to focus on getting an edge rusher opposite Montez Sweat, and I mean, it would also be nice to add in a D tackle in there to help with Billings and Jervon Dexter, but I focus more on um uh edge rusher. There are also three guys I think we should take a look at. For the first option is a reunion with Khalil Mack for a couple of seasons, or for a couple of reasons. He's been with the Bears before, and Dennis Allen was the Raiders head coach when Mac was drafted in 2014, so that he has familiarity with both of the team and the defensive system, so that helps. So I mean, that would be my number one option for maybe 2 years, to finish out Mac's career. The second option could be Josh Sweat. I'm sorry. Uh, and that would kind of be cool to kind of have the. Let me be clear: Josh Sweat and Montez Sweat are not related, but it would kind of be cool to have the Sweat brothers as the edge rushers. That would be cool. But the concern is whether he will make it to free agency. If he does, definitely offer him something. But we'll have to see if he accepts it. Um, the final options, the final option that I believe the Bears should look into is Chase Young. Young played in Dennis Allen's system last year, so he wouldn't need to adjust to anything. I'm pretty sure and I'm also pretty sure when we traded for Sweat, we checked in on Young before pulling the trigger on Sweat when he was with the Commanders. And you could probably get him for pretty cheap. Maybe like a 2-year, $14 to $15 million deal in total, not a year. So that would be 7 to 7.5 a year. For reference, he signed a 1-year deal, $7 million last year with New Orleans. So maybe give him a little bit more money just to get him to come here. But what are your thoughts on those three options, Jack?
Yeah, working backwards. For Chase Young, I think you ask Montez Sweat like what kind of a guy this is. We've definitely heard some work ethic concerns with him in the past, but I think for the amount that his contract would be, that would be something I'd be willing to take a risk on, just because he obviously has very insane potential. He was the number 2 pick in the draft for a reason. Uh, Josh Sweat, I think, is just going to be too expensive. Unfortunately,
Sure.
could have been MVP of the Super Bowl. Had a great year, probably their best pass
Yeah.
rusher. I don't think they let him go. But obviously, like you mentioned, if he does make it to free agency, offer him a contract. Why not? And then I think Khalil Mack is becoming a little bit more realistic by like day by day. If he decides to continue his career and play another year, I think Chicago is one of the few spots he would even consider. I think it's sort of similar to like what Keenan Allen, where he's at in his career right now, where he said he'd only really come back to Chicago or either the LA teams.
Yeah.
I think Khalil Mack might just want somewhere he's familiar with. He's been on the West Coast in Chicago pretty much exclusively during his NFL career. Obviously, attended college at Buffalo on the East Coast. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Mack maybe makes his way a little bit more back towards that Midwest East Coast vibe and signs with the Bears this offseason. And I think for the amount that you mentioned would be a great signing and a good veteran presence in the locker room as well.
Would you do it for 1 or 2 years? Out of curiosity.
Um, I think it would depend on what he wants. There's a chance he only wants 1 year. I would try and do two, and maybe do 2 years at like a little under 10 million per year. But I think it
Like
all depends on.
maybe like a 2-year, $19 million contract, nine and a
Yeah,
half year, something like that.
something like that.
I think that'd be a good contract. Um, so I mean, if we could get 2 out of the 3 offensive linemen that we mentioned, hopefully those being Trey Smith and Drew Dahlman, and then get an edge rusher and maybe a D tackle or something like that. Maybe like a guy like Sheldon Rakins. He played in Dennis Allen's system, and he was just released by the Bengals a couple of days ago. If we could get 3 or 4 players that would contribute to our biggest needs on this team, I wouldn't care if our free agent class was that small. If we get Trey Smith and Drew Dahlman, I mean, if we stop there, I'd be happy. But we need something on the defensive line to help. So I think that we have to figure out something for defensive line. And let me actually, I saw a tweet on Twitter uh, a couple days ago, and it was a guy that was predicting who would sign with the Bears, and he put Chase Young on there, and he put that he would give him $17.5 million a year, which for how injury prone he is and all the character concerns, do not give him that much. I mean,
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
he's not worth that much. I know that he is a former second overall pick, but he only had 5.5 sacks last year, which is
Mhm.
a very considerable number. But when you look at it, let me look at his sack totals actually, real quick. Um, I don't think it's that high per se.
No.
I mean, all right. Let me look in his total career. Uh in his total career, he's played 60 games and has had 22 total sacks.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, it's you don't want to be dishing out a ton of money to him.
I mean, if you had, you know, in the mid 30s by now, maybe, but not low 20s.
No.
That's too low for
Mhm.
me. I would take a 1 or 2 year deal, but I wouldn't, give him $17.5 million. That's
No.
not
I don't think we should. It still says like it's going, and like that's happened to us before, and we've been okay. So I
okay.
think we'll be okay.
All right. So sorry, something happened with our recording. So we had to rejoin here. But I would not give Chase Young more than like $7 million for 2 years if I was the Bears or any team in particular, actually, just because of his lack of production.
Yeah,
So let's see what's next. So the combine doesn't start officially until Thursday, but uh teams and or not teams, general managers and coaches are supposed to talk to the media tomorrow. And here's a little something weird. Ryan Poles is not scheduled to talk to the media tomorrow, when all coaches and GMs are supposed to talk. Now, there's a couple reasons why I could see that happening. He wants to focus on getting the roster down and cutting certain players, or he wants all the spotlight when it comes to the Bears to go to Ben Johnson, which is very respectable. I think that's a very nice uh, uh, thing to do. Now, I am not confirming that that's what um, is happening, but those are my guesses as to why he's not going to be there. And let us be clear: he is not skipping the combine. He will be at the combine when you get to interview players and you get to watch them showcase their talents and all that stuff. It's just he's not going to be there to talk to the media, which I don't really think is you know that important per se. But I would talk to the media if I was at the combine. But what are your thoughts on that, Jack?
yeah. I don't know. For now, I'll say it's a little bit of a nothing burger, unless we hear there's something going on bad behind the scenes. But I'm just gonna let my mind continue to think that everything is perfect within the Bears right now, and all that matters is what we just talked about, trying to shape out this roster. To be honest.
Yeah. So I mean, there's everything's fine. When players start showcasing their talents, which is on Thursday. On Thursday, uh, polls will be there to be a part of player interviews and all that stuff, and get to talk to prospects and all that stuff. So everything's gonna be fine. He'll be there when it matters most. Now, who won't be there is I read that Kyle Shanahan is fully skipping the combine. He will not be there at all. Which, if you were at, pick 30 or 29 or something like that, where you've been in the past couple of years, I completely think that that's fine. But for reference,
They're
the
picking 11.
49ers are they're at pick 11 right now. And
Yeah.
that can get you a very good player. So I mean, if I was Kyle Shanahan, I'd be there to just see what kind of talent you could get. Now, John Lynch is also one of the best GMs to when it comes to finding talent, but I will admit, Ricky Pearsall did not work out very well for you last season. So you
All right,
might
but
want to.
in fairness, I'll give him one more year, considering he got shot right before the year started.
I will do that too. I will give him another year.
I know what you're
But,
saying. No, I know what you're saying.
I mean, you probably you. I mean, if I was the 49ers, I probably would have taken Xavier Worthy, but that's just my opinion. But before we end off this podcast, I think it would be a good idea to do a 7-round mock draft on PFF. And but let me say this before we get into the mock draft. When you see who we pick in our reasonings and all that stuff, take it with a grain of salt because this is before the combine, and at the combine there's a possibility of injuries, there's a possibility of a poor combine performance and all that stuff. So players that we might take, in this mock draft could either rise on draft boards and not be available at a certain pick that we have that aren't available when we do this, or they could be they could drop because of a bad performance. So take this mock draft with a grain of salt. In the next 3 or 4 weeks, they'll probably get more realistic because that's when top 30 visits happen and all that stuff, and people actually realize where their true talent is and all that stuff. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we'll get this mock draft going, and then we're going to be heading out here. All right. All right, so let's see who actually gets picked to see if it actually is the same, because sometimes one mock draft and another mock draft are two different things. So let's actually see how this goes.
Was a little different.
Um. Okay. So actually, this is different. So Cam Ward still went number one, which, I mean, I don't think that either of the top quarterbacks are great, but
No,
the Titans need one. Ted McMillan went to the Browns, which is surprising. I
interesting.
I expected him to go to the Patriots actually. Travis Hunter has pretty much always went to the Giants that I've seen or been doing of mock drafts at least. Abdul Carter went to the Patriots, which I think he should go to the Browns because who knows what's his Myles Garrett might get traded, so replacing Myles Garrett with Abdul Carter is a pretty good replacement. Mason Graham went to the Jaguars, which that's interesting because I think the Jaguars need more help on offense than they do defense.
I
Uh,
don't. Their defensive tackle, they are very weak. I have seen a lot of people tying Graham to them.
um, Luther Burden went to the Raiders. That's a
Classic,
little surprising because I
classic,
thought that they
classic
would
Raiders
actually.
pick.
I like the pick. Let me say that, but I actually thought they'd switch uh, Sanders with the Raiders. But this is also I'm not drafting every position, every team. So you know, so this is being drafted by the computer. So it doesn't mean anything. Um, the Jets take Shedeur Sanders, which with them moving on from Aaron Rodgers, they need a quarterback, but I just don't see Shedeur Sanders going there because I think Now, I'm taking it with a grain of salt, but you know, Dion has said that he will control where his son and Travis Hunter go. So I don't necessarily think that the Jets is a place that uh, um, uh, Sanders is going to be comfortable with for his son. Will Campbell got taken by the Panthers, which is kind of surprising with their needs being D line and DB, apparent according to uh, PFF.com. But I understand the pick because you got um, Bryce Young and he needs protection. Uh, Tyler Warren, I wouldn't take
He's been shooting up draft boards a lot.
really.
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah had him in his top 10 of his mock that he just released, his second mock for the offseason. And
Where did he
I feel
go
like
in that? Did you
I
remember?
think he went 9 as well.
Oh
It
wow.
was either 9 or 7. He either went to the Jets or the Saints.
Oh okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is staring us in the face. I mean, you know, part of me wants to do this. Part of me wants to, take an edge rusher. Part of me wants to trade back and get a guard or a tackle. But what would you do here, Jack? If the guy staring us in the face is on the board at 10.
Um, I still would lean potentially trade back and get in a position where you can still draft
Okay.
Kelvin Banks. But
So where do you think where do you think is a comfortable spot to get Kelvin Banks?
I think like 15 to 17 if anyone's offering a trade within that range. But
Well, I can actually like try to make a trade with someone. I'll go to 15 because I don't want to necessarily lose out.
yeah,
So, I want to take 46, but I'm gonna try and take 46 from them for 10 and God, would you
10,
offer?
1072 and maybe like a future, or you can't do futures, can you?
No, you can.
Oh, maybe like a future fourth or fifth or something.
Wow, they're not like seriously, they're not interested in trade. I'm gonna try. I'll try 16. See if because the Falcons have like no draft capital at all, so
Yeah,
it's not really realistic for them to try and trade. Uh, uh what? If I'm giving up 72, I'll try and get 78 from them, and maybe like a
yeah. Nope.
nope, that's not working either.
Well,
You
maybe we'll just stick at 10 then. Maybe we do. Maybe we
Yeah.
take. Maybe let's take Genty and see what that could possibly lead to. Because I
Okay,
feel
so
like
let's just say that this mock draft is a mock draft in a scenario where we get Trey Smith and Drew Dahlman
yes,
on the offensive line, and this mock draft is a mock draft where we're comfortable taking Ashton Genty.
I
So
like
we're
that.
gonna we're gonna do that, and we'll see what happens when it comes to 39, which is right now. I'm gonna look back to see if people that might have been on the board for us have been taken because there's one guy on the board that I would really want to take, but I need to make sure that he's not, and he hasn't. But let me say that I'm gonna take this guy, and I'm pretty sure that you and I are gonna agree that
Yeah,
if he's available, we take Tyler Booker at this point,
yeah,
right?
100%.
Now, let us say this: if he, balls out at the combine and has a great top 30 visit for other teams, there is a complete realistic uh, scenario where he gets taken late in the first round, or you know right before we get to our pick at 39. But if he's there, I'm running to the podium for Tyler Booker.
Hmm.
Now, ooh, that's too bad because that was actually one guy that I would have. Uh, the Saints took one guy that I would actually have on my list. Let's actually look at edge right now, just for
Yeah, because I mean, thinking about it, so we've got Dahlman, Trey Smith, and Tyler Booker as our interior now. So our offensive line is pretty set.
yes.
So, and I
Now,
know
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say Princely is would not be a bad pick here at all. I think either of those edge rushers, Sawyer or
Yeah, I
Princely, would
actually
be
really like the both of these two guys. And I mean, I, hmm, I think, I think based on his his body and his size and all that stuff, I think Princely would fit the type of edge rusher that um, Dennis Allen wants. So
yeah,
I would take him at this point if
I
he's
would
available.
agree.
Um, here's where it kind of gets, you know, uh,
So I feel
interesting.
like now is when you can start looking at safety or wide receiver or continue to go offensive line depth.
Let's look at safety right now because I'm not really. I haven't really done many uh things on looking uh for um hmm, for wide receivers per se. Um, I mean, I don't really know much about many of these guys.
Mhm.
I mean, not very good coverage stats. Miss a good amount of tackles. I mean, that's almost 15%. Uh, I mean, let me look at the next guy. I'm trying to see what like a good. Well, coverage stats are better. Missed tackle rate is about the same,
Missed some tackles, but I mean the coverage and the run defense grade are pretty dang good.
and I'm pretty sure that Dennis Allen is going to care about run defense. So
Hmm.
I mean, I I'd probably take the guy from Ohio State over the guy from Penn
Yeah,
State. Uh, so I'm, you know, this is us not knowing a lot.
yeah, because we don't
We're
know who
just
we're going to sign in
guessing.
free agency, who we're going to trade. Like it's
Oh, that's too bad. 147 would be one guy I'd look at this spot.
yeah.
But let's actually go there and see what kind of
Ooh, Nick Nash, great year last year.
let's see his stats. Uh,
I mean, he had a crazy year.
la, okay. Oh, does it say his stats though?
Yeah,
Like,
if you go up a little bit, or maybe no. I mean, he led the he led the NCAA in like every single receiving category last year.
so he
Yeah, yeah.
played.
He had, where is it?
Oh,
104 catches, 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns.
oh yeah. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, he's
I
not the
I
most he's
take
not the
that.
most athletic guy, but he definitely is a good player. Like he is
Yeah,
a solid wide receiver.
and honestly, with him being from a school that people don't know a lot about, he'd probably be available at this spot. So
Mhm.
I'll take a shot. I mean, I don't really care about rankings. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad pick or not. I mean, it's you know we're doing the best that we can. We don't know you
Mhm.
know what's good. So okay, I mean, starting here would be probably where I would just probably get some like offensive lineman depth,
Yeah, I
maybe a
would just go
backup
like
tight end.
best player available at any position we think we might need depth at.
I mean, uh, Kansas. Oh my
I
god!
feel like might be guard might be what we look at more, just because we do have Kyron Amagaji as our swing tackle
All right, I'll go
still.
to guard. I'll go to guard. I I mean,
I
any
just don't know much about many of these guys down here in the draft, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know much about him either. That's why I'm looking at this, the stats. I'm looking at his, blocking stuff. Although I will say this about if you're a an offensive lineman or a big man from one of the big schools, you should be a good option. And also, we also have one of the, or at least from what I've read, one of the best offensive lineman coaches. So I'm going to take Miles Frazier here. I don't exactly know who he is, but he's from LSU. That's a great program for a lot of positions. So I'm going to take a shot on him. And if you're in the sixth round, you're trying to get backups at this point. So we've probably hit on most of the needs that we need. So now it's just about getting depth. So I'm going to take Miles Frazier. All right, so now we're at 234. I mean, I'd look for a backup tight end at this point, just because we don't have anyone behind uh, Cole Kmet. I don't really know any of these guys. I'll look at his stats, but I don't think it's going to be much of a. Um, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just
Let's just take. I feel like we're not going to know much about any of these guys. I feel like we
yeah.
should just finish out the last couple picks and then look at the grade as a whole.
Yeah, sure. I mean, do you want me to take a best player available, or do you want
Yeah,
me to
go
go?
best play. I mean, we did
Well,
draft GMT. Maybe take a
yeah,
backup. Maybe take the Louisville quarterback. Give us a backup quarterback.
all right, sure. And then the last one,
Yeah,
uh,
please. I mean, Jaden Blue's still freaking. Oh, Theo Weiss would be a wide receiver one that I'd look at. I watched a decent number of Mizzou games this year. I thought he had a good year.
yeah, well, I mean, he has 14 total touchdowns,
Yeah, and I
and
mean, he had almost 1,000 receiving yards last year.
oh, I'm looking at the wrong.
Year, yeah.
It's no, no, no. I'm looking at the wrong stat. Like I'm looking at
Oh,
the pass snaps, and I'm like, God, like that's not really good yards. But then I
yeah,
realized that they're down here. But
yeah.
wouldn't you usually put them up here?
I would, yeah, but PFF does it weird.
But yeah, I mean, uh, uh, 60 receptions on 89 targets. That's 66% catch rate or catch probability. So that's pretty good. I
Hmm.
mean, he's gone up in targets and stats every year. I mean, he went down in touchdowns a little bit this year, but I mean, his yards per receptions are pretty good. I mean, I
Hmm.
would take that. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'd take him here actually.
let's do it.
So I mean, I got glad I scrolled down a little bit because I don't know anything about any of the other people. All right, so all right. So I paid for the extra stuff on PFF. So this is taking or telling us to take a different player at 39, but I'm not listening to it because if this guy is available at that spot, that's who I think the Bears would be taking.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, you look at some of these. Genty is a great is going to be a great player. The concern that I have is how great of a player is he going to actually be in the NFL because he went to school that was against you know second or third tier opponents. But I think if we can solidify that offensive line, he would be a great pick at number 10 if he's available. You know, looking back at it, I could say that I'm going to go to the whole thing. If there was one team that possibly could could look at him, I would say the Raiders would make a lot of sense. With them having Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll traded for Marshawn Lynch
Marshall, yeah.
when he was named head coach. But if Genty is available at 10 and you fix the offensive line, and guys like Will Campbell, and you don't necessarily want Calvin Banks at 10, I think Ashton Genty is a good spot. I I disagree with the grade for Tyler Booker. To be honest, I would put that at least a B plus.
Hmm.
But he's ranked at 46. We took him 7 spots early, but that's
It
like
doesn't.
a
It's all about what you need.
I mean, that's a need that we have, and I mean, I agree with the grade for Princely. That's a good grade for him at that spot. Um, Now here, round 3 and after is probably where we get to a point where we don't know anything about these guys. But apparently, Nick Nash, he had a good year, and based on where he went to college, he might slip, and this would be a perfect opportunity to grab him there. Um, Miles Frazier, I don't know much about either, but we took him at 196. He's graded at 202, but still got a B plus, and I mean, we need backups, so and when you come from LSU, you're going to be a good player, most likely. So, we took flyers at this point. Uh, Tyler Chow, I think that's how you say it. I wouldn't know how to pronounce that right.
It's either
Um,
Shaw or Schaff, but it doesn't matter.
you know, when you're a Louisville quarterback, you're most likely a running quarterback, because the last Louisville quarterback that went in the draft was, or at least went in the draft that was worth something, was Lamar Jackson, and he was the running quarterback. Now I'm not
Believe it
saying.
or not, though, he's actually a very much pocket passer.
Oh, well, that's very good that you know that, because I don't know that. But I mean, it's a good idea to have a backup. I mean, I like Bajent, but you never know. Maybe
His
and uh,
his dad's always starting shit. Like I don't feel like we need to deal with that.
and then Weiss looked like he had a good college run, and I mean, I would be very happy if he was, wide receiver 5 or 4. Well, not 4, but 5 or 6. But I mean, overall, we get a B plus. I mean, I think we could. I mean, I think that some of these grades are a little lower than they should be.
Hmm.
I mean, I'd say that Genty is graded correctly. Princely is graded correctly. Uh, Maybe Miles Frazier. I'm not sure. Uh, I would probably raise the grade on Booker and probably Ransom, because he goes to Ohio State, and Ohio State players are always pretty good unless you're a quarterback somehow. Um, but I mean, I would say that this is at least a minus of a draft, not a B plus. I mean, they're
Hmm.
close, but I mean, there are some grades on here that I would definitely change.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that's going to be our podcast. Hopefully we can mesh these two together, and if not, we'll figure out how to fix this. I don't know why we had a kicking out problem, but yeah, I think that's it. stop sharing. Forgot to stop. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll be back, next Monday, and we'll talk about the combine and see. We'll talk about who the Bears talked to and all that stuff, and we'll go from there. Have a good week, everybody.
See everybody.
All right. See ya.